numbo van kion voranier kubraie lochio arme fia gausta belangen sidi hora baho sna hiriri rabi forn ko babi ho baho kubraie lochio arme fia gausta belangen abena nurchre kuyum pen kut mobianach sidi hora baho sna
This is the view of Loch Eel and Loch Linney from Anoch Moor, the neighbouring hill to Ben Nevis, the highest mountain in Britain. Over the breast of the hill on the right, you can just about catch a glimpse of Loch Lochy and Loch Arkaig, the northern boundary of the homelands of Clan Cameron. And over and beyond these hills in front of us, it's still Cameron country, and right on to the southern boundary, to the loch glinting in the distance, Loch Eel, from which the chief of Clan Cameron takes his name. Down there on the road north from Fort William, Roderick Cameron, a Scot now living in California, is making a nostalgic trip with his daughter Katrina to visit the land of their forefathers, with a special invitation to call in their clan chief. They've just arrived at the Commander Memorial at Spian Bridge.
Here at the monument, Katrina, I think we're more or less at the start of Cameron country. Now I recognise Ben Nevis over here, the highest mountain of Britain, just under the clouds, and looking down where the sun is shining down towards Fort William and Loch Linney. And then from Loch Linney, Loch Eel would go to the west and slightly north, and that would be a boundary, I think. And then all of these lands and hills, moors and glens, right round, and then round this glen here we would get down into Loch Arkaig in Achnacarry Castle, where Loch Eel hopefully will be waiting for us. So as far as I can remember, this is the general area of the clans, both ancient and modern. And we're going to do a wee journey by foot now. So we'll set off down the road to Achnacarry.
Van kion voranje sidi hora baho sna hiriri rabi orn ko babi ho baho kuenesh numbo van kion voranje kubraie lochio arme fia gausta belangen sidi hora baho sna
There's an old graveyard there. That's got plenty of family gravestones in it. We must take a look at that one day. Well, Katrina, here we are at the Caledonian Canal now, and this was built about the early 1800s, finished about 1820s, and it was built so that shipping could come, both naval and fishing boats could come from the west of Scotland right across to the east without having to go round to the wild north of the country around Cape Wrath. And well, I see there's a wee boat coming through the locks and they'll be opening this bridge. So let's you and I just carry on in our journey before the bridge is opened here.
And this is more the sort of craft we see today, travelling the 60 miles of waterway, a canal and 3 freshwater lochs of the Great Glen between Inverness and Fort William. But Rod and Katrina, having decided to walk the road from Speanbridge, are pushing onwards to Achnacarry. In Gaelic, the field of the fishweir, the home base of the Cameron chiefs for the last few centuries.
Here we are at Achnacarry, Katrina. Yes, take your pants off. Well, good morning, Michael.
Good morning to you.
Robert Cameron.
Very nice to see you, Rob.
Hey.
Delighted to welcome you here.
And Katrina, my daughter.
Come here for the first time. Very nice indeed.
Well, that's been a great pleasure.
Well, a great job. You managed to avoid all the heavy rain, and
Well, there's a mixture of sun and shower, so we come equipped.
that's quite right. You've got to be well equipped for this
Yeah.
sort of country. So, absolutely right.
Many years since I've been, but I was here as a boy, not much older than Katrina.
Yeah.
So it's marvellous that she can
Well,
visit.
it's great thing to be able to show you some of the Cameron country, isn't it?
And
Well, come in now to the house.
thank you.
It's not what one might call a very old house, but it was built, in fact, in 1805 by my ancestor, the 21st chief. And he was only a boy when he inherited it. And he came up here as a young man with his wife and decided to build a house here. But when he got here, before he finished the house, he got
The 21st chief, however, lived most of his life in London,
brought up.
and the house wasn't actually finished until 1830 by Lochiel's great-grandfather.
The house wasn't finished.
It replaced the earlier house, which was burnt down in 1746 by the Hanoverian government troops as retribution after Culloden. It had been built mostly of timber, but with stone gables, and this is the only part still remaining near the entrance to the present driveway. But Rod, who already knows a fair bit of the clan history, had arranged for Katrina to learn more of the origins of the clan from the chief himself, Colonel Sir Donald Cameron of Lochiel.
Yes, I think, to be honest, the origin of the Camerons, the origin of the clan, is, as they say, lost in the mists of antiquity. No one's quite certain how it did start. But what we do know was that Cameron did sign the Treaty of Arbroath, the Great Declaration of Arbroath. It was signed by a man called John de Cameron, who was probably an ancestor.
Yes.
And we do know then that a little bit later on, Cameron came here and married a McMartin, who lived on the other side of Loch Lochy, and she was an heiress. And he married her, and by virtue of his character and his martial ability, became the leader of the clan. And that was about 1300, that sort of time.
Yes.
And then he and his successors then reigned as chiefs of the clan. But we talk about the first 10 chiefs. But it was the 11th chief who became the captain of Clan Cameron. He was the first Cameron of Lochiel recognised as the full chief, although I call myself the 26th chief. The first 10 of some dubiety, but still they were chiefs, they were leaders.
Yes.
And one of the most famous back in history of the Camerons was Sir Ewan Cameron.
Yes, he was a great character. He had quite a character before him, his grandfather called Ewan McCallum, who was a tremendously warlike man and led his clan great raids against other clans on.
Would that be in the 1500s?
That was about there. And he was, he repented of his sins once, and he went, it was two stories really. One is about the cat, well that's a long story, I won't bother much. It's in the book and the history of the cat. But anyhow, he was told that he must build 7 churches to repent himself of his sins, which he did, and one of them is at Achnacarry Church above Roy Bridge today.
And are these 7 churches within the Cameron?
No, they were in various parts of the Highlands. Anyhow, he was supposed to repent, but I don't think he lived very long, because I think after that he still continued his warlike exploits. I think he ended up on the gallows somewhere. But his grandson, Sir Ewan, was a great character, a very loyal man, who was brought up in the exploits of Montrose. He was too young to follow Montrose, but he was a great supporter of his in every other way. And then he came, his children goes now by the Campbells at Inverara. He was brought up at Inverara by the Campbells.
Yes.
But he was a great character and very strong man. He's reputed to have killed the last wolf in Lochaber, and we have the gun in the museum, which is supposed to have done that. He fought the Battle of Killiecrankie in 1689 under Bonnie Dundee.
Yes. And
he supposed to have led his clan barefoot, because it was easier than leading him in boots and sort of thing. So he led his clan barefoot, and unfortunately Dundee was killed in the moment of victory. Right. And so Ewan, rather disgusted with the new command, came home. And he didn't die till he was about 90 years old, over 90. He died young. In 1715 he was alive. And he was supposed to have woken up and said, my king has landed in Scotland, because he died soon after that. He was knighted by King James II in London. And they drew his sword. He was a bit rusty. He couldn't draw it from the scabbard. And the king said, "I didn't think Sir Ewan was so ready to defend the Lord's sword with his sword. He couldn't draw it now."
And then the king drew his sword.
The king knighted him. Yeah.
Story. Yes.
He was. He fought a lot, of course, against Cromwell's men up here, who were by then occupying Fort William.
Yes.
And he sort of led a guerrilla warfare against them, a very successful one too. But he was so respected. When they had to give their oath of allegiance to the new King William, his was accepted verbally. He didn't have to sign anything. All right. So he was one of the greatest of our chiefs, and no doubt about that.
And then probably the next most famous would be the gentle O'Keil and his connection with the uprising of 1745.
Yes, he was a splendid man, quite a sort of different type of character, very far-seeing, and he was doing a lot of things here which to help the other clans, to help the Camerons in particular, of course. I mean,
was there some story, Lochiel, about him something to do with about to be planting an avenue of beeches down the river there?
It was rather sad, because he was doing all these things like having a meal mill to feed the clans and begging people out of the clan. And then he heard Prince Charles had landed in the West Isles with only 7 men by him, and proposing to raise the clans and try and restore the compliance of the Charles. He thought that was an impossible project, really. It couldn't possibly work. And he went, and he was going to try and tell him that it wasn't possible. And his brother, John Cameron, said, if you or fellows will go and see the Prince when you were, he said, oh, no, I must see him. I'm loyal to Jacob. I must at least go and see him.
Yes.
And at the time, when he heard it there, he was planting a beech avenue. So he, what we call, shook the trees into this trench, right there, close together, meaning to come back and go on planting. Of course, when he got to see Prince Charles, he was won over. The story goes that Prince Charles said, he can stay at home and read in the papers the fate of his prince and that sort of thing. I think probably the truth is, Prince Charles persuaded him that he's had great support from the French, both men and money. And therefore he had better chance than he thought. Anyhow, he said, I'll come back and I'll raise my clan and I'll follow you. So he came back and he raised his clan, about 800 men, marched over to Kinkinnon, where the stand was raised, went out with Prince Charles. They were all defeated at the Battle of Culloden. He was exiled. He came back here for a bit, saw his house burning, stayed in a cave over that hill there, in his little hut, actually, that hill there. And then, but then he went out with Prince Charlie to France, died soon after, and never came back here. So the trees at Beach Avenue, grown up, just he put them in the trench, close together. 240 of those.
Yes, so they date right from the uprising.
Yes, exactly. There's an interesting memento of those days.
And Katrina, the prince we're talking about here, of course, is Bonnie Prince Charlie. You know songs about that. We sing songs about it, and tales about it. But that's in fact Prince Charlie. And it was as a result, am I correct, of Lochiel's involvement in the 45 that resulted in us actually sitting in the splendid new Achnacarry castle, because the old castle, of course, was put to the torch.
It was indeed.
In retribution for the activities.
It was indeed. See, all the Jacobites, they were determined that the Jacobites would not rise again. So they had a system of devastation of the houses. They burnt all the houses, they ravaged the country. Really awful. We weren't allowed to wear the tartan, they weren't allowed to carry arms or
play the pipes.
Or play or anything like that. But of course, Lochiel thought it wasn't, as you, I think you said earlier, a rebellion. We thought it was a rising to restore the rightful kings.
Exactly.
That's right.
Exactly.
But,
the other context.
But that was the end of the clan system as we knew it then.
Yes, and I would guess that the Camerons probably suffered as much as any other clan.
They did, yes. There's a letter from Cumberland to the king recommending it, really, to make quite safe they wouldn't rise again. They should make a whole clans emigrate, and such as the Camerons and tribes of the MacDonalds. Luckily, it wasn't put into effect, but that was a proposal from Cumberland.
From Cumberland himself.
They should transport the whole of the Clan Cameron to.
But in fact, in talking about transporting it from, let's say, the end of the 18th century into the beginning of the 19th century, there was a tremendous amount of emigration from this district of Lochaber and Moidart and Neuter and Skye that we call the clearances.
Well, yeah.
And do you think that that Camerons did leave these shores in those days?
Enormous number of them. There's no doubt about that. I think, to be truthful, I think that before Cologne, before 1745, the clan system was gradually changing. There's no question of it. It was changing altogether, and the sort of feudal system existed. But the Battle of Cologne and the results of that battle did undoubtedly hasten that change a lot.
Yes.
And one of the changes was that all the Camerons and the members of the clan who lived up Glen in great poverty, no question of that, in great poverty, really, they couldn't go on. They had to move.
Yes.
It was hastened by the fact that a lot of the land was taken over for sheep farming in a big way. In this part of the country, a lot of the Camerons who lived, say, up Achnacarry, were moved down to what we now call the Great Glen by Ballamy Court, which was much more fertile country. And they also got jobs with the canal, making canals. Yes. So it was quite a good move in these days. It was thought quite sensible. But of course, they didn't like it, and they had to move, and a great number were helped to immigrate. And some, of course, were forced to immigrate. But they did. They went, as you say, right from there.
And probably from that period, although we know that clansmen worked as mercenaries in Europe for centuries, but probably the time of the clearances was the influence of Scottish Highlanders spread throughout Canada, America, Australia, New Zealand, other destinations.
I think it did. But the Highlanders, the Camerons were always a very warlike clan since the beginning. They were always fighting their neighbours. They had to be, because they were a fairly small clan. And they had the Argyles on one side and the Gordons on the other.
Yes.
And whichever side they went with, they obviously got disliked by the other side, whether they won or lost. It didn't matter. So they had to be very diplomatic and tactful and very skillful with their arms. And they undoubtedly were a warlike clan. For example, we had a feud with the Macintoshes went on for 300 years. So they were, it was quite a long time, that feud.
And of course,
mostly over land.
And then eventually, under British rule, Cameron regiments were formed.
Yes, of course, after the whole thing changed. In 1793, the Queen's Own Cameron Highlanders were formed by a great Cameron called Sir Alan Cameron of Erich, who was a cadet branch of the Clan Cameron, a very important branch of the Clan Cameron. And Sir Alan Cameron of Erich was a great leader of men, and he formed the Queen's Own Cameron Highlanders. At that time, his family, the Ellis, were having a bit of a feud with the Camerons of Pasteur, who were trustees for the estate. So Lochiels didn't go into the Cameron Highlands at that time. But the Cameron Highlanders have been always, since their formation, a great regiment, and we, as a family, have supported them tremendously. My father was in the Cameron Highlands, two of my brothers served in it. I was in the territorial Cameron after the war, so we've got tremendous associations with the Queen's Own Cameron Highlanders. Yes. And my father, 1914 war, raised 3 battalions of Queen's Own Cameron Highlanders, largely by his own name, joined Lochiels Camerons, were all over the trams in Glasgow, and they joined it like, they all joined like they formed 3 battalions, sadly, of course.
And you yourself saw military activity, was it in Greece during
I
World
saw
War II?
military, I was in a regiment called the Lovett Scouts, which was raised by Lord Lovett the Fraser in the World War. And I joined the Lovett Scouts because both my brothers and Camerons, and I ended up seeing activity in Italy, mostly in Italy. And we ended up in Greece, actually, mostly Italy.
So now in the 20th century, I suppose the number of people that put Cameron as their surname is greater than it's ever been in history before. We're spread all over the place.
We are spread all over the world. And of course we have septs of the clan too, which is important thing, because people like the Taylors, for example, there are septs of the clan. There's a great man called the Taylor, the Black Taylor, Taylor Dhu, in the, I think it was about the 14th century, who led the clan when Lochiel at that time was a minor, was just a baby clan. He led the clan, was a tremendous man. He eventually went and lived in Dunoon now, but he had a big family. And undoubtedly a lot of Taylors are descended from him. Don't say all Taylors, a lot of Taylors are. Yes. And so the Taylor are a sept of the clan. And you find in America, for example, and anywhere, a lot of Taylors belong to the Cameron Association.
Yes.
And a very long members of the clan. Equally Clarks, they're a very important sept of the clan.
I myself have spread my wings a little, though, you know, my mother was a Mackenzie, I'm a Cameron, my mother was a Mackenzie, and I have Frasers and Chisholms, MacDonalds, McNeils in my blood. But I've spread my wings now. I'm married to an American, and I spent half my year working in America and half in Scotland. And Katrina has been raised mostly in San Francisco and Mendocino to the north, but we come across Camerons in California. Now tell me, in this day and age, Lochiel, what's your sense of how important it means to be a member of a Scottish clan? Do we find people coming back like myself and visiting the home?
I think it's very important. And what is interesting is I think it's growing. I mean, we have now about 10 branches, I think, of the clan in the United States, another 3 or 4 in Canada, and we got 5 in Australia, about 10 in New Zealand. I mean, there are a great number of branches of the clan, and they like it. And what the great thing, I think, is they remember the history of the clan. They have a common history, common tradition, common loyalty and pride in the clan. They also, of course, meet together for social occasions, which they like very much enjoying. It produces a sort of sense of unity, which I think is terribly important these days, to find your one, even all over the world. I mean, they produce magazines, newsletters, like each one, and they send them to Cameron, to New Zealand, Australia. It keeps them all
as a family.
All united as Camerons.
Yes.
And of course, what we have great importance is we're all very keen to bring the young in, and I think that's terribly important, because not only do we look back on the past with pride and know our history,
yes,
but we also want to bring the young in, so that continues to the next generation.
Certainly.
And so I've always very important,
yes,
I think, to draw the young into the clan association.
Right.
And they are very active now. It's a completely sort of new concept, what it used to be before 1745. But there is a big clan association throughout the world. They come over here to visit us here. We're lucky in that the chief of the clan still lives in the clan country.
In residence.
At Achnacarry, in the clan centre. So they can come and visit our chief.
Yes.
Try and find their own roots, where
Yes.
their ancestors came from. And it's very much two-way business. And my wife and I very often go abroad to
Yes.
visit the clans. We've been to California, we've been to Florida recently, and we've been to New Zealand and Australia and Carolina, all over the place, visiting the clan and being very, very welcome by them. great time there. And we equally welcome people here.
And now down from the castle you have the Clan Cameron Museum, which has been
I
opened
think
in the last
that's a
few
great
years.
addition to the clan. We started that about 3 years ago, largely the thought of my son, daughter-in-law, but we supported them very strongly in that clan.
Yes.
And we now got that museum going, which I hope you will visit, and you will see a bit of the history of the clan there, which I'm sure you will find of interest. And we also have brought it up to date, because on one side we then have the what goes on in the present state today, figures of sheep coming out and cattle and all the sort of activities of today, so to show what happened in the state. And we also have a panel devoted to the Queens and Cameron Highlanders, which have been lent things from their museum, and have little lectures about them. And then we have a commando panel, because during the last war, commandos used this place as a training centre.
It's a training centre.
And it quite got damaged to the house, so we had a lot of restoration work of the house to do. They did use that. A lot of commanders come back to see either where they trained, or their sons come back to see where their fathers trained. But they come in. It's rather nice having a panel in the museum for the commando.
Well, that sounds interesting. I think, Lochiel, that what we will do then is we'll take the opportunity to have a visit, Katrina and I, and go and see what's to be seen down at the Clan Museum.
Well, that would be very nice. I think you'll find my son there probably, and I hope to be able to join you.
Very good. Well, thank you very much.
Well, it's been a very great pleasure to see you.
Great pleasure for
me
us.
to show you something of the Cameron lands, and tell you a little bit about the Cameron history.
Thank you very much.
And with the weather brightening up, hopefully for the rest of the day, Rod and Katrina managed a quiet browse around the Clan Museum before the arrival of the afternoon's first busload of visitors. In the little study room at the end of the old 18th century croft house, Donald Cameron, the younger of Lochiel, told Rod how the museum had come into being.
This was used as the post office. Where we're standing now was the counter of the post office, and another person lived at the other end of the museum. And sadly, when the post office moved and the person who lived at the other end died, the building fell into a tremendous state of disrepair. And it was a listed building, and the oldest building on the estate. And it seemed sad to let it fall down. If indeed we'd been allowed to let it fall down. At the same time, it was becoming clear that there were a lot of Camerons coming back to their home country. And when they came back, they obviously wanted to find out a little bit about their history. So they tended to wander up to my parents' house and ring the bell. My father, being the person he is, always used to welcome them with open arms. And take them in. And we realised that that interest probably was not best satisfied by my father getting up from his tea and showing them around the house. So my wife, funny enough, was the one who suggested that the two should perhaps be merged, the two problems should be merged into the one, and that we should restore this building and turn it into a museum which would become a centre for the clan, where they could come and find out about their past and their history and their roots, and stop wandering up to Achnacarry.
And after all, we are many thousands today, Camerons.
Yes, well, of course, we're not the biggest clan, but we are, I think you'd agree, the best. In that, although we might have been on the losing side a lot, we've always been on the right side. Montrose and probably Prince Charlie, etc., etc.
And so when did this transformation take place? When did the museum open? Recently?
I think we started thinking about it in about 1987, and we had a friend in London who designed the Imperial War Museum, amongst other things. And we got him up here, and he drew wonderful pictures of how it might look. And we had a very good local builder, and a chap who built what he calls the diorama, the Prince Charlie's Refuge at the end of the museum. And it was opened on 1st of May 1989 by Fitzroy MacLean, Sir Fitzroy MacLean, who made a very nice speech about the Camerons being the clan that we should all look up to.
Very good. Now, when the visitors come to the museum, what interests them most here?
Well, I think it's obviously rather individual, but what I find most interesting is perhaps the three brothers, the gentle Hugh and his two brothers, because they were remarkable men. The one who led the clan,
Donald, the leader of the clan,
Alexander and Archibald. There was another brother, John, who didn't take very much part in it.
yes,
But Archibald, who got executed in 1753, Alexander, who became a Catholic and who is seen praying in front of the troops before the battle, and, as I said, the gentle Achille himself. Three remarkable brothers. One died in a prison hulk in the Thames. One, as I say, got executed, and one died in exile in France in 1748. Very romantic trio.
very romantic.
Cameron is an anagram of romance.
Of romance, my goodness.
And I think that's what's nice about the clan, you know, that it has got a lot of decent history
Yes,
behind it.
and
The other things, I think, is the kilt worn by the last soldier who fought as a serving soldier in battle wearing a kilt, or one of the last certainly.
and that was which battle?
That was after Dunkirk.
After Dunkirk,
Yeah, in the Second World War.
in the Second World War.
The other thing, we have a waistcoat of Bonnie Prince Charlie.
Uh-huh.
I think there are probably about 500 waistcoats of Bonnie Prince Charlie scattered over Scotland.
Right.
We'd like to think ours is genuine anyway.
Yes.
We also have some very interesting boots worn by Sir Ewan, the one you mentioned, which are neither left nor right boots. I believe that left and right were not invented in boots until well after his death.
The cobbler's art was just to make boots.
And his gun, which is enormously heavy and which probably required a tripod to fire off. So those are some of the artefacts. But I think the history, for people who are not Cameron, is also fascinating to read about the aftermath of the 45 rebellion, the clearances, the emigration that took place, and the regimental connections with the clan, i.e. the Queen's Own Cameron Highlanders,
Right.
sadly merged once 30 years ago with the Seaforth, and possibly going to be merged again
Once more,
once
yes.
more. And the commandos, who a lot of commandos come back here because the place was covered in nissen huts. They killed people, they used live ammunition, and a few people died.
My goodness.
And a lot of commandos, less now I have to say as years go by, but their children come back.
Really?
They say my father always told me I should come and see where I trained in the war. So we get a lot of those people coming back too.
Right, so it's really an unbroken line of adventures that's happened around.
Well, we've been very lucky because the clan has gone father-son since number 10 down to number 27, except 4 times when it went grandson twice and brother twice. So it's a very long line.
It's a very
succession.
clean
So
line of
it's
succession.
quite interesting historically for anybody really to see how a clan has developed over that time since 1400.
And one of the few clans that have the chief in residence in the old clan grounds and in Achnacarry.
Yeah, and with the clan lands fairly intact round about, yeah.
Yes. In this present day and age, what would you say was the relevance of, or the value of this thing that we call Clan Cameron today?
Well, I think that's quite difficult because I don't think we want to wallow in the past. I think that we've got to try and make a clan something modern and useful.
Yes.
I wouldn't want to overemphasise how important a clan is in the outside world. I think it's important to the individual members of the clan, which, as I'm sure you know, means family.
Yes.
And if they enjoy coming here and feel a need to find out about their past, then I think that can be changed into a thing for the future, in that we are a family, and if we all get to know each other, then in some small way it fits into the global village that you mentioned to me earlier.
The sense that
there are little threads.
Yes.
And the more that one can draw on those and build on them, then it can only do good.
Yes.
But I don't think one should overemphasise the importance of the clan system in the 20th or 21st century particularly.
Very
but
good.
People enjoy coming here, we're here, I think they get a lot out of it, and it can only do good as we all get to know each other better.
Thank you, Donald. Well, we certainly have gotten a great deal out of it, and Katrina and myself. Where is Katrina now? Oh, there she is down there. I think she's found something of interest at the other end of the museum.
Indeed she has, and she's had a few questions to ask museum curator Beryl Austin about them. These, for instance, had caught her attention.
Bro, could you tell me about all the Cameron tartans in this museum, why there are so many?
There are 4 main ones. There's the Clan Cameron tartan, the one that many people use. There is the hunting Cameron, which is a green one, and that's supposed to be used for hunting and out of doors. And there's the Cameron of Erracht, or the 79th, and it is also called the Queen's Own Cameron Highlanders tartan.
And that's that tartan.
And that's this one here. And it was created by Sir Alan Cameron of Erracht when he created the Cameron Highlanders in 1793. And it's a mixture of the MacDonald tartan and the MacLean tartan. And then there is the Lochiel tartan, which you'll have seen Donald wearing.
Yeah.
And that's the family tartan.
And could you tell me about the clan badge?
That's the crest, the Cameron crest, and the Gaelic writing on the top means unite. And there are 5 arrows in it, and that represents the 5 sections of the Clan Cameron.
What's that you got, Katrina?
It's a duck I found. Can I have it, Dad?
Sure. And with the Cameron of Erracht tartan on it. Very nice. And I've got something from the bookshelf here that we're going to buy and take home so we can study. This is the history of the Camerons. So, these 2 items, if you will. Beryl, thank you.
Certainly. And there's enough reading there to fill in all the gaps in Rod's knowledge of his clan. But it's time now for Rod and Katrina to set off on the last lap of their journey.
Well, here's Lochiel coming now, Katrina. Lochiel, hello again.
Nice to see you again.
Yes.
And you've just been to the museum?
Just come out of the museum. We had a very pleasant visit there, learned a lot more about the clan.
Good.
And saw some of the relics from the time of the 45.
Good. Well, I'm just on the way there myself to see who's visiting it. And it's so nice that you should come here with your daughter, because you've been here before as a young man, I know. And it's splendid for the young to come. That's what's so keen. Is to encourage the young of the clan to come back and visit the home of their forebears and see for themselves all that is to be seen in the Clan Cameron country.
Yes.
So I'm glad to have met you and to have had this little talk with you.
Now we're going to complete our journey by going down to Achnacarry.
Good.
So we'll bid our farewell.
Very well. Thank you very much. Thank you for coming. Very nice
Thank
meeting
you.
Bye.
Bye.
On the 19th of August 1995, a replica of a Scottish fighting ship of centuries past made its way smoothly up the calm, sunlit waters of Loch Shiel. On board it carried a group of men representing Prince Charles Edward Stuart and his attendants, and on land a company of several thousand waited to greet him. Prince Charles would have been thrilled and delighted at such a turnout of loyal clansmen in August 1745, but this crowd had really gathered for the annual Glenfinnan Highland Games, for which this reenactment was an added attraction. As always, Sir Donald was in attendance, and this year part of the platform party.
So we can imagine the scene which you have just seen reenacted here, after landing at Slatach, over there at the head of Loch Shiel, and crossing the River Finnan. A number of loyal MacDonalds with him, but not more than about 200 or 300. And he waited with some anxiety for a sign of the Camerons. Then he heard the pipes play. Down that hill came about 700 men of the Clan Cameron, who had marched over from Achnacarry and Loch.
But amongst the crowd, there were many more members of Clan Cameron than usual, for this was the year of the Clan Cameron gathering at Achnacarry, where just a week before they had marched in now traditional fashion to pay respects to their chief. On this occasion, they also marked the coming of age of Sir Donald and Lady Cameron's grandson, Donald Andrew.
Thank you very much, Mr.
There were gifts from clan associations from all over the world.
Let's keep the sun out of your eyes. Protect you from the ultraviolet, but it's not recommended while you're water skiing.
From Clan Cameron, New Zealand. It is actually a walking stick. It is what you call planning in advance. We don't expect you perhaps to use it immediately, but there will be a time, no doubt, when it may even help you to climb Ben Nevis again. Thank you.
Not even the odd shower of rain could dampen the spirits of this great gathering of clansmen. In 2001, there was a special celebration to mark the new millennium, but it was also for something else very special as well.
Sir Donald, loyal Camerons, friends from far and wide, we are gathered here near Nevis's lofty peak, once more to celebrate our bonds of kinship, ancient heritage and history of pain. But before all, heartily, I gladly to pledge allegiance to our chief, 50 years, our chief, Donald Dhu, as unstinting as his illustrious forebears in his dedication and devotion to us, his proud and thankful clansmen. Under his stalwart leadership, the Camerons, wherever in this world's far corners they may be, have prospered, their name revered, their heritage honoured, and their history renowned. Lochiel, the clan salutes you. May this oak tree stand as a symbol for future generations of the Camerons' sturdy tradition, strength of fellowship, hopes for the future, and enduring roots in the heart of Lochaber. 3 cheers for Lochiel. Hip hip! Hooray! Hip hip! Hooray! Hip hip! Hooray!
Thank you very much indeed for your kind words. It's a very great pleasure to plant this tree, which I hope will grow the next 200-300 years, and be a monument to the celebrations we're having today. Thank you very much for your kind words. So now, don't want to film that pulse as well. He doesn't want to do that, does he?
Ashley will now play a special. Ashley Cameron will now play a specially composed tune called The Donald Cameron of Lochiel, our chief, 50 years our chief. Thank you.
It is with great sadness that we have to report the passing of Lochiel on Wednesday the 26th of June 2004. A peaceful passing at his home at Achnacarry.